Hey guys, this is a follow-up to my last video where we looked at doing a head gasket test on my 2007 Audi A8. And since then, noticed smoke coming out of the hood, and essentially looks like we've got a leak with a radiator hose. So I'm going to show you a video here of what I recorded earlier and see if we can diagnose and resolve the issue. One other thing I want to point out is to confirm my low coolant level is also caused by the same issue. I noticed, or in the video that you saw, steam coming out of the top over here, and then coolant that I had poured in leaking out there underneath. Essentially trying to see how things are set up in here in that area, and it looks like hard to see in there. There's a connector. I'm not exactly sure where the split is, if it's on the connector connecting these two hoses, this one here and that hose there, those two. My hope is it's the hoses, and those are short. I think we can replace either one of those really easily. But I'm gonna have to turn it on and see if I can figure out where the split is occurring and see if we can see where the steam is coming out. So we're gonna give that a shot. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take the airbox out, give myself a little bit more room to work in here where the coolant hose goes in. So a couple of Phillips screws here, one on the top, one on the bottom, and then Phillips screws down here at the base of the airbox. Having a Phillips with a long extension makes it easier to get those out, so we'll do that next. Okay, I got the airbox out, filter. In case you're wondering what kind of filter, Hengst E723L. Bought that 2 years ago, still pretty clean. And then now I'm gonna pull this part out. Just pops right off. And let's see if I can get down in there and get a better look at. Get the flashlight. Should be a pin in there that we can reach and lift up. All right. Let's see if we can get in there with the flathead screwdriver, lift it up, and then I think this whole assembly will pop out this way. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is grab a pair of pliers. There's a clamp there. I'm going to grab a pair of pliers and pinch that and pull the hose off this way. And do the same for the feed coming from the reservoir. So again, pinch and pull off, and then I think I might be able to get more room into the hose assembly in there. Alright. I got the hose clamp disconnected from the reservoir, but to get the pliers down in here, I just don't feel comfortable trying to wiggle in there and work that loose. So I'm going to take the rest of the airbox out, and I need a number 8 socket to get that right there, right down here. So we're going to take that loose. Looks like there's a sensor connector here we may have to disconnect. So those are the next steps. All right, so to fix the radiator hose, upper right radiator hose, had to buy a new part. And let's find the part number 4E0121101BS. This is all one part, by the way. I think if there's a part number on this, it's all generic stuff, so we'll ignore that. But anyway, so I've gotten part of it loose from the engine intake, and then you can see the other part is still connected to the radiator. And the way it's oriented is like this, so you can kind of see the side tube coming out there. So the reason why I'm doing that is to get this part loose, you have to get a flathead screwdriver on the bottom side, call it the belly, and get that flathead right in that hole there and then pull down. And so essentially that will release the springs that you see there on the side. Not really springs, but rails. And that'll allow you to pull the hose off of the radiator. So let's see if I can do that while I'm recording here. See if I come in from the back side underneath. This is obviously upside down. Yeah, pull that up. And now you can see those pins are out of the way. So I'm going to do that, put the phone down, and be right back. You get the screwdriver under there finally and pop it off. And upon quick inspection, this is what it looks like on the inside. Again, that's dried up radiator fluid. But upon quick inspection, there's where my hole was, and that's where all the steam was coming out. So now it's time to put the new one back in, reverse the process, and go from there. One other thing I want to point out, getting this thing out, even though I pulled that pin down with the screwdriver, I literally had to get a pair of big pliers to get any kind of grip and leverage. So I was able to get these in there, get a hold of the hard plastic there, and pull it out. One thing I'll share too is this is obviously worn out over time, very spongy, but compared to the new one, definitely more durable. I'm sure it'll start to flex over time as well, and heat and coolant fluid go through it, but let's go ahead and put the new one in. All right, after trying to put the new one in, I realized why the old one was so hard to pull off. And inside there you can kind of see a rubber O-ring, and you have to push it in far enough so that passes over the lip on the intake to the radiator. So give it some push. All right, here are a couple of tips I'm going to share trying to get this hose back in and the clamps installed. There's probably a special pair of pliers, but I used a set of needle nose, and I put one in down in that loop, and then the other one off the top side there to squeeze. And pretty much you got to squeeze it all the way together to get it on the hose based on the diameter. Okay, so I now have the radiator hose reinstalled, And I ended up using a pipe clamp. That seemed to be the easiest way to get it in there and ensure that it's not going to come loose on the overflow. So now let's get the airbox fully back in and resume getting things back together. All right, as I was trying to get the airbox back together, this little vacuum hose on the back just crumbled in my fingers. Probably the original, and it was probably time to change, so I guess it was a good time. So the part that I had to go to the dealer and replace, 4E0131552M. Again, just a little vacuum hose, real easy to plug into both ends. So I'm going to take off the old broken parts and put that back in place now. All right, getting the airbox in, making sure this part is in there correctly and there's no gaps at the bottom or the top. Make sure that's snug. Next, let's put the filter in and the airbox back on. All right, we got the airbox back in. Coolant hose is in there, and now since we had a hole and coolant leaked out, we introduced air into the system. So now we need to go through the process of bleeding what coolant is in there out, and before we put fresh coolant back in. All right, so I've completed the radiator hose repair on the car and drove it on the family trip for Thanksgiving and no issues. I'm gonna save the video for flushing the coolant as a separate video, so stay tuned. Good luck with your car.